Okay, we're now live on YouTube. The chair would like to start the meeting, please.
Thank you. Welcome to this meeting of the Windsor and Ascot Development Management Committee on the 6th of July 2023. My name is Councillor Hythe and I will be chairing this meeting. The meeting is being held in person and via Zoom and streamed live to the public on YouTube. I remind all attendees that participation in the meeting indicates consent to the audio and video being streamed live and acknowledgement that after the meeting it will continue to be available in the public domain. There are no fire drills scheduled for this evening, so if the fire alarm does sound, please leave via the nearest exit there or there and rendezvous at the assembly point in the car park. Firstly, it would be useful if all committee members and officers could introduce themselves so the public are aware who is in this meeting and the role they're undertaking. So as I said, I'm Councillor Hythe, Amy Hythe, the chair, and I'll go to my right.
Mark Wilson, vice chair.
Devon Davis. Councillor Julian Hythe.
Councillor Carol da Costa, voting member of the panel.
Councillor David Buckley, member of the panel.
Councillor Alison Carpenter, voting member of the panel.
Councillor Julian Sharp, voting member of the panel.
Councillor Sandra Luxton, voting member of the panel.
Mark Bealey, Principal Democratic Services Officer.
Jeffrey, Principal Planning Officer.
Adrian Waite, Head of Planning.
Thank you. I request that meeting participants do not speak unless I specifically invite you to do so. Once I've invited you to speak, before you do, please state your name and the capacity in which you're speaking, if appropriate. I'll also ask officers to speak at appropriate times. If any individual attempts to disrupt the meeting, I'm able to use my powers in the Constitution to adjourn the meeting or have the individual removed. We will now start on the agenda items. Do we have any apologies for absence, Mark?
No apologies, Chair.
Thank you. And any declarations of interest? I'll start because I do. I just want to put on the record that I currently have a child at the Lawns Nursery, but they will be leaving in July, so there will be no benefit to my family or any members of my family from the application on tonight if it's approved. But that's just to be open, and I come with an open mind. Julian.
Hello, Councillor Julian Hythe, exactly the same, yes, same child at the same place for the next 2 weeks at least. I come with an open mind to the meeting in regard to the second proposal that we have in front of us.
Anybody else? No? Okay, thank you. So the minutes of the meeting, we just need to approve the minutes of the meeting that was held on the 7th of June as a true and accurate record. Can we do so? Good, thank you. Lovely. Okay, so we'll come to the substantive items this evening. So the first one is the Fowles crushed concrete Hythe Farm, Hythe Road, Wraysbury. And Jeffrey is going to introduce it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. This is a full application for replacement of hard standing with concrete surfacing and maintenance assets, drainage infrastructures associated with the lawful sortage and processing of waste material in the northwestern area of the existing waste recycling facilities at Forest Crushed Concrete in Hythe Farm. Issues with my PowerPoint. So this slide shows is a site location plan of the wider site. And the right-hand side of this plan showing is the red line boundary of this application site for this evening. The application's site is within an area of roughly 0.52 hectares of the wider area, what I said in the beginning of the presentations. The area itself is within a metropolitan green belt and also the Environment Agency Flood Zone 3B, which is a functional floodplain. The site itself has a subject to a certificate of lawfulness, which was granted in 1998 for existing use for the storage and processing of a certain waste set out in the certificate. The site also currently has a subject to an environmental permit, which required certain waste set out in the permit table to be set in the treat on the impermeable surfacing with sealed drainage system, and that is the reasons why this application comes in. The proposed concrete surfacing is required to fulfill the requirement of the environment permit, as I said. Environment agency and all other consultants has been consulted, and the council's flood officers has raised concerns about the area to be used as the surface water storage will be used as the stockpiling. The officers said that the surface water storage could only be sufficient size for the 1 in 100 years plus 40% climate change event if there's no materials can be stored within the designated area of the surface water storage. And given that the area will be used as material stockpiling, there will be a technically reduced area available for surface water to be stored. I would like to draw members' attention to the update sheets provided, because there is a letter from the applicant, and also there's a technical provided by the applicant to respond to the final comments from the flood officers. The technical note does say the concrete surfacing is a working area, is not subject to a longer term stockpiling of waste. So in the officer's view, there is no dispute that the area to be used for flood and the area to be used as stock waste can actually be used as the dry area, which is shown as in the grey area, providing the flood risk assessment designated for storage. However, the technical note also says it will not be practical completely to fill the surfacing, as a reasonable working area would be required for site operation. So in theory, the grey area and the blue area actually could be used as stockpiling as a working area, because to facilitate the operation side of a waste development. So the technical note we received is not fully elaborate how the surface water storage will be compatible with the waste operation of the site. From the reasons above, it says the recommendations for this committee this evening to refuse these planning applications, with the reasons for because there's no, in an absence of an appropriate and acceptable surface water storage strategy to overcome, there will not increase the surface risk of the surface water flooding, and it will be contrary to the policy DM10 of the Central and East Berkshire Joint Mineral Waste Plan. So I think that's the end of my introductions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jeffrey. So this evening we have one speaker, guest speaker on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Guy Titman. You have 3 minutes to speak, and it begins when you press the red button on the microphone, and you'll be given a 1-minute warning as well. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, Councillors. The planning application before you is very simple. It is to construct a concrete surface with a sealed drainage system either at or below ground level in the northwestern area of the site, such that certain waste can be stored and processed pursuant to conditions of the environment permit. This is not a planning application for waste storage processing operations themselves, as they're already consented. It is simply to make changes to an area of site surfacing. There are no objections to the development from the statutory or technical consultees, including the Environment Agency. The sole reason for the recommendation for refusal is a comment, which is not an objection from the lead local flood authority. Unfortunately, the comment from the flood authority is flawed. Consequently, the recommendation for refusal is flawed. The flood authority has suggested that there is insufficient volume available within the proposed area of concrete to store both waste and surface water runoff. This is not the case, and not a scenario which will occur based on operational practices. In addition to the flawed technical basis for the recommendation for refusal, the applicant is concerned that the council have acted unreasonably by not allowing the applicant the opportunity to address the comment fully, citing that it would not be timely because of delays due to consultative responses and the local election. The delay due to consultative responses and the local election is hardly within the control of the applicant. It took the flood authority 33 weeks to make this flawed comment, which is an additional comment to the other comments made by the flood authority. Had they identified the issue sooner, the applicant could have clarified the issue sooner. The council has stated that national planning policy sets out that planning authorities should determine applications in a timely manner. National planning policy also states that planning authorities should approach decisions in a positive and creative way, and that decision makers at every level should seek to approve applications for sustainable development where possible. Cutting short the consultation process, whereby extremely late and flawed comments cannot be addressed fully by applicants, does not constitute approaching planning.
That's 1 minute remaining.
In a positive and creative way. The applicant does not support the recommendation in the report. Irrespective of the approach of the council, the applicant responded to the comments from the flood Authority and had hoped that the recommendation would change. This has not happened, hence if the application is refused, the applicant will appeal the decision, which will bring with it significant cost implications for both the applicant and the council. And there is no reason this needs to be the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we will open up for members' discussion, and Councillor Da Costa indicated first.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask a question of our planners. The applicant states that they did not have an adequate opportunity to discuss an alternative to what's being proposed now. Could we have some clarification on that, please? Because obviously, if there were other models available, this could look a little bit different today. So can we just have a little bit of clarification on that, please?
Right. So first of all, I think the applicant concern actually comes from with the additional information we received with the technical note. So in my update sheet, the section 3 actually has some of the point already addressed the point. I also separately sent an email respond to the applicant regarding on the comments or the concerns they have in the letter. But I mean, when Councillor Da Costa, you asked me the question, I'm happy to explain a little bit briefly. So I think there is 2 points possibly I want to respond. The first point regarding on having opportunities to given to the applicant respond. The discussions from between our flood LFA, I mean our flood officers and the applicant is not something that just comes at the last minute from the before the determination of this committee. The LFA had comments quite early in the early stage of this determination stage of these applications, and there was some applicant additional information responding to the LFA comments. So I don't agree that is no opportunities given. Actually, opportunity have been given for that conversation is being ongoing. The comments we received from the flood authority was on the 15th of June, which I acknowledge that is something after the publication. I mean the drafting of this report and the deadline for having this application to put forward to the committee. And we had a conversations with the applicant to address their issues. That is the reasons why I don't think that will be acceptable for the new information, because the application is already being scheduled to the committee. But I mean, I have an options for the applicant to withdraw the applications so they can go back to have a bit more information to resubmit the things in. But I don't have any response from the applicant, apart from there's a letter about saying that with the additional information. And I can confirm that technical note and information provided by the applicant has been fully addressed in the update sheet. So it's not entirely correct saying that the officers is not having the opportunities for them to respond, because we have already addressed the concerning update sheet, and that has been put in the agenda for tonight's evening. And I think that is my response.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And Adrian, thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to add in, so there were comments from the lead local flood authority on the 28th of November 22, the 7th of February 2023, the 4th of May 2023, and the final comments the 15th of June 2023. So it is a case that consultee has been commenting, raising technical matters. They're matters that have been ongoing discussions to try and address them. The final comment was late. Yes, we get to a stage where we put something on an agenda and we can't accept further information or take it into account or continue the debate. If we did, every time we put something on the committee agenda, we would not be hearing the item, because inevitably we get submissions last minute. But it's certainly not a case that there hasn't been dialogue and the local authority hasn't tried to provide opportunities to address the matters. If the applicant's unhappy with the decision, there are the opportunity to resubmit an application. There are generally free go provisions to allow additional information to be submitted to try and address it at a local level, or the applicant would have the right to appeal, as the person speaking has already set out. So there are ways that additional information or further technical details can still be brought forward and considered to enable consideration of the proposal, albeit through appeal or through a revised submission.
Can I just ask, because that made things very much clearer in my head. So I just want to ask if the fact that dialogue took place, does that go some way to reducing our risk at appeal? Because obviously we don't want people going to appeal and additional costs. So does the fact that we have engaged in that discussion, does that reduce our risk at an appeal any further?
So I mean, risks of cost at appeals are always a matter for the appeal inspector, but personally, I don't think that the fact that the lead local flood authority has responded 4 times in the processing of this application, and on 3 of those occasions, additional information has been submitted to try and address those concerns, demonstrates that the local planning authority hasn't been reasonable in trying to address things. We get to a point where we can't take things any further and we have to bring things to an end. But I think we've given reasonable opportunity during the processing to try and get to the bottom of things.
Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. With this application, I'm very keen to ensure that businesses are allowed to get on and do what they want to do and do what they do best. And so it seems like there's a very technical reason here for the recommendation that we've got. So, you know, we're saying that there is a risk of flooding on this area, but the applicant has said that that's actually very unlikely to happen, and the way they operate their business will negate that eventuality if it were to arise. So I'm just wondering if there's a way through with all of this to actually get to a stage where we could actually recommend this for approval, which would enable the business to get on doing what they do. I'm just concerned that we're on a very detailed technicality, which I think frankly is more than we're used to. We're in danger of stopping something happening, which we all probably agree in an ideal world they should be let to get on with, but I want to make sure that it's done correctly and safely, and you know, there's no risk and people aren't doing the wrong thing, and we're not setting precedents, for example, with other applications that may come through later. But I just wonder if there's a way through with this, because I don't maybe haven't understood the flooding implications. You know, is there what will be the implication to us if we said yes to this? You know, is there a danger to the public, or where does that arise, and you know, what's the implication of it? Thank you.
Yes, Jeffrey, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Sharp, your first point about the operations of the operator, whether they can run their business. I think the applicant itself, and also in my introduction, I think the presentation is quite clear. This is an active operational waste site. So they are just doing to add concrete surfacing on top because to fulfill the requirement of the permit. So even this evening, if members go forward with the officer recommendation refusing these applications, the applicant still got the certificate to handle and storing the waste, but not the waste set in the permit requirement requiring to that things. So I mean, that's why the wider site is not really preventing to do, because they still got a certificate to do so. That's not something relevant to this evening's consideration. So in theory, the short answer for your first question is they can still running on the business, but not just on that waste, because we are refusing that bit. The second point, I think you are asking about the implications about the reasons behind. As I think, as I explained in the introduction, I mean, there is a flood concerns about the area. So the area now shows on the plan, the blue area and the grey area. So makes it a bit easier to understand. The blue area is the area suggested by the applicant's flood consultant to be used as the surface water storage, which has been agreed by our officers, our flood officer. There is a sufficient volume to be used as surface water, but there's a condition is that area should not be used as stockpiling materials because they can't be coexist. The applicant additional information does reinstate the position saying that the gray area not touching the blue area technically sufficient to do the stockpiling things in without using the blue area for stockpiling. But the technical notes provided by the applicant also saying that the area, the operation procedures of having the stockpiling and the working area is quite in a dynamic one because they have it depends on the operations of the things in. So the questions, I think back to the point is how we are going to ensure that so-called the blue area will not be used as stockpiling. It comes to two technical issues from a planning perspective, not about the other things, because this is a planning application. The first point is about the enforceability. So this plan showing here is an indicative drawing, just very easy, just work out that is the volume, total volume. That is the area can be used for surface water. That's the area will be sufficient use for the surface. But in the reality, as said in the technical notes provided by the applicant, is more likely is a more dynamic way to work with. As you can see from the site photo, if my officer from enforcement team coming to have a conditions having to have that area, how we can condition unless there's a very clear indications of that area should not be used as stockpiling. So that is the first reasons why there possibly is a problem about enforcement, and that is also about the conditions as set out in the NPPF. The second point is about the reasonable in all matter. That is also another test point when we have the conditions to be put in. So as the applicant said in the technical note, explaining about briefly the operation of the site, how it's going to work, they will be quite a dynamic way to work. So it would be not reasonable to we set a no touching area for stockpiling, because otherwise that is not reasonable for them to really operate the site even with granted permissions, because that site possibly we use the stockpiling. Otherwise they have to take away that stockpiling to that area just doing working. That will not be happen. So I mean, that is the two reasons why we consider there is an issue not be overcome, even the technical notes provided. And the condition test explanation is explained in the committee report. So that is something for detail. So I hope that I can overcome your questions.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis is next. Oh, okay, thank you. Councillor Luxton.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chair. So going back to the photographs of the site, please. Yeah, when you say stockpiling, are you talking about the mud piles next to the working area?
Yes, they are the stockpiling thing.
So that's the stockpile.
The stockpiling.
Okay.
But currently the site is permeable.
Yeah.
So the application coming in is an impermeable surface with the sewage drainage infrastructure. So this is the application coming in.
So flood water, rainwater would actually flood that area.
Yeah, but because it's a permeable, so it allows the
you go through.
Yeah.
Okay. So my second question is just referring to Councillor Shah. So can we sort of delegate it to you to sort of make sure, if we want not to delay any further with this because it's taken so much time and whatever, and it's only a simple matter between you and the applicant, can we get delegated to the officers to make sure that what we want is done, because it's only come to us because it's part of the property of the council or whatever? Just a question.
You want to answer that one, Adrian?
Yeah, I mean, while I would say there are certain matters that it's acceptable for the committee to delegate back to the head of planning, where there's really specific matters like legal agreements, etc., where we know what the heads of terms are to resolve. That's one thing. I think in this case, it's technical information. We would need more technical information to reach a view on it, and depending on what that technical information said, it would be a different determination. So, you know, my general thing would be we should determine applications as soon as we're able to. We are able to determine it. The applicant may be unhappy, may disagree with that determination, but there are reasonable options for the applicant to take forward to address that and get a permission through either resubmitting with the answers to the technical questions, or via appeal if they wish. So my personal view would be it's appropriate for the committee to determine this tonight. There are options for the applicant to address things, and I don't think that deferring it back to me as the head of planning to get the technical details will resolve things any quicker, really.
Just that would be helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Julian Teasey.
Hello. Can I just ask about, I must admit, this all seems to turn on the flood risk assessment. And it's, I think in the original, or one of the original documents dated October 2022, so a little while ago, on page 40, it said that the application is not accompanied by a detailed FRA or surface water drainage report. Now, since then, there have been lots of documents that we seem to have seen, including flood risk assessment. Now, can I just ask about flood risk assessment? It appears it all turns on the fact that, look, okay, this is, as the Environment Agency had said, well, it's at or below ground level, so that's fine. But it's about the stockpiling. Is that correct? Is this all about the stockpiling ultimately? And is there a sort of, is it reasonably clear what the applicant might need to do to address those if this were resubmitted?
I think the answer provided is on the final comments from the local lead flood authority dated 15 June 2023, is talking about the surface water storage, which I put it in the beginning of the report. So the surface water storage volume can only be sufficiently sized in 100 year plus 40 anyway, subject to there is no materials will be stored in that area, which I explained in the plan would be the blue area. And in that plan, the applicant did indicate there will be potentially used as stockpiling to that area, which the technical note provide to the additional information provided to this evening for the update sheet does not saying that this area would not be used as stockpiling, but the technical note just saying that there will be a working area of a temporary natures for the stockpiling nature. So in my officer's perspective, they are not really addressing what the LFA concerns. I understand the applicant has a different views on the LFA comments, but let's sit alongside of this one, just purely on the LFA comments regarding on that particular point. This point has not been addressed and overcome entirely by the applicant, even with the applicant additional information provided.
Just as a follow-up, that I think just on that on the very point that you just said, I mean, in a way, or sort of in response to Councillor Sharp had said, I sort of have similar sort of views in terms of, look, if something is broadly fine, let's approve it, but we can only ultimately surely judge the application in front of us, not the one we would like to have in front of us. So just on that basis, is it clear? Can you just for my benefit, what else would they need to do? If they were to resubmit it? I mean, it sounds like this is the council has gone through. There's enormous correspondence with the applicant, but what more would they need to do in terms of to say address that, so that maybe they could come back at some future point and have something that might be approved?
I think looking at it, there is probably more detail about the level of capacity of the concrete slab to accommodate the 100-year plus 40% year climate change event, and probably further details as well about what extent of that capacity may be taken up with the storage of materials and the operational things. I don't think there's huge amounts of technical detail. I'm sure we could go away and the lead local flood authority could have discussions with the applicant about what information might satisfy them. I mean, ultimately, they are discussions we would have after tonight in any event, whatever route the applicant went down, because if the applicant appeals, we would be seeking to address the matters between us before we got to appeal. If the applicant wishes to resubmit, we would want to help them get to the best place for an application. So yeah, I will ask Jeffrey to ensure that the lead local flood authority does get in touch with the applicant to have those discussions after tonight, whatever the decision is as well.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Just I guess a point of clarification. So just listening and so reading and listening to the discussion, it seems like the pivot point of the decision is that the letter provided very recently by the applicant has said that they weren't clear, or they're basically implying that they could be using that blue area for storage. If they wrote in that letter they would not use the blue letter for storage, would that be the pivot point? Would we then be going, okay, we're actually, there's no reason to reject?
In theory, I would say yes, but in the reality, in terms of in a planning perspective, is I don't think that's something can be achievable. As I said, this is it's a surface water generic arrangement scheme, but this is an indicative drawing, so it just explaining that is the surface water storage can be used on the plan. But in the reality, I mean, as I said in the discussing the site photo, unless there's a plan showing very clearly what is the area not to be used as a stockpiling, we can indicate it as put as a condition as an approved plan. So we can have an officers, if there's a complaint about concerns, we can enforce and just take into that will be not used as a stockpiling. Unfortunately, I mean, all the information provided in these applications and up till now in this evening, I don't see there's a plan showing there is a very clear area for surface water storage. So I don't think that plan can be conditioned because of, I explained in the report, that will not be enforceable. The second thing will not be reasonable as well, because they are, as said in their technical note, the natures of the surfacing is for stockpiling. So if we are conditioned, they can't stockpiling. So that's not something not reasonable I mean, possibly would not meet the condition test. So I think that is the reasons why the answer is technically yes, but in the reality, I don't think that's meet the test. So that's my answer. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate we do need to look at the applications in front of us this evening in that sense. So thank you.
Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. Just for really my clarity on all of this, although this area is very clearly defined on the drawing there, and it's going to be an area which is concreted over at ground level, so in reality, in terms of the whole area itself, it's actually not going to be divisible off from, you know, that materials are going to come into the waste site. They're going to be, you know, they could be dropped 2 yards away, 1 yard away. It could overlap, and it could be on that area, whether it's at the top or bottom of the area. So there's actually no way of, in reality, in terms of the operation of the site, and looking at the pictures that you showed earlier on, you know, there's piles of waste all over the place. So the reality is that that area, although it's clearly defined on the drawing, actually isn't going to be clearly defined when the site is in operation. So there's actually no way of determining whether they would or could comply with any restriction that we would put or might seek to put on that to enable us to say yes to this, but we can't because there is no way of enforcing that sort of thing. So from what I've heard this evening is we need a bit more information from the applicant. And I'm really keen to be able to see a resolution to it, because it sounds like from what I've heard this evening that the two parties actually could be very close to one another to be able to get to a yes situation rather than a no situation. And that's what I'd like to see, so long as we can comply with all our regulations and all that sort of thing. But at the moment, it just feels like the recommendation that is being made before us on this application, it feels like that's the only one that we can actually take. There isn't an alternative. So I propose that we actually go with officer's recommendation. At the moment, it's not what I want to see, but I think that's the only way we can actually go at the moment, unfortunately.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So just to clarify, that's Councillor Sharp was the motion to approve officer recommendations, and Councillor Luxton was seconding. Councillor De Costa, were you also putting your hands up? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So just to confirm, the motion being put forward is to refuse the application. This is in line with officer's recommendations for the reasons listed in the report as well. So it's been proposed by Councillor Sharp, seconded by Councillor Luxton. Tell me if you're for, against, or abstaining on this motion, please. Starting with Councillor Buckley.
For.
Councillor Carpenter.
For.
Councillor De Costa.
For.
Councillor Davies.
For.
Councillor Luxton.
For.
Councillor Sharp.
For.
Councillor Amy Teasey.
For.
Councillor Julian Teasey.
For.
And Councillor Wilson.
For.
That's unanimous, Chairman. So the application has been refused.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on then to the second item we're looking at this evening, which is the Lawns Nursery, Oakfield First School and Oakfield School Lodge, Imperial Road, Windsor. And Jeffrey's going to tell us about this one.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is for the change of use of the existing caretaker's bungalow to provide an early years pre-learning hub with alteration to foundation, rear terrace, and car park space, parking space provided. The proposal also comes with a second part, which is about the alteration of the existing school entrance with one number ramp, and also the creation of two separate entrances to the nursery and the Oakfield school. So before I move to the details of the application, I would like to draw members' attention to the update sheet, because there is a change of the recommendations based on additional information received after the publication of the main report. So there is two updates I would like to draw members' attention. The first update is about there was a plan submitted to confirming there was only one parking space to be provided in front of the bungalow, which originally was proposed two, so including three. So that's why there will be a change in descriptions, and only one parking space will be provided. And the two parking space to be removed because they are initially officers concerned they are within the root protection area of the tree. So that is the first change. The second amendment is about there is additional plans submitted regarding on the ecological enhancement of the garden area of the bungalow, which including a length of hazel hedge to the east of the fencing, the native wild flower area to the west side of the lawn, and also back boxes provided, and the hedgehog friendly gravel board to the fence panel. So that plan has been considered and reviewed by the officers, and the enhancement are considered to be acceptable and will be secured by planning conditions. So back to the applications. So that is the site location plan. The red line is the area of the applications for this evening. And as I said in the introductions, the bungalow change of use happening in that caretaker bungalow, which I'm now pointing as arrow. And the second part of the work is about the alteration to the separate entrance, is talking about the main building of the school building. So there will be plans showing the details in a minute. That's the photos about the site. The first left is the main entrance of the which is the bungalow. The below two photos, which is the front elevation and the rear elevations of the change of use bungalow. The right top corner photo is the second part of the work, which is the entrance area to the main building. The proposed work is to create a separate entrance by replacing that window, which there will be drawings comes to show that proposal later on. That is the existing layout of the applications covering the bungalow part, the change of use part. That is the plan showing the amended part, which is now having just one new parking space to be provided. So that is the update layout plan to be shown. This plan showing is the additional plan regarding on the ecological enhancement measure, as I said in the introductions about the update sheet. So I'm not trying to repeat, but that is the plan showing that's the flower area, for example, the back box provide and the tree. That is the change of use bungalow. That's the layout plan. And that is the proposed plan. As said in the description, there is an alteration to the fenestration. So including there is a new doors when you compare the old existing one, a new door to the rear of the garden. So let the children to go to the garden area, which is the play area. This comes to the second part of this description of development, which is about the alteration of the separate entrance. So this is the existing section showing the entrance of the main building. That is the proposed plan. As seen from the layout and the sections, see there's a separate entrance to be provided. So allow the lawn nursery and Oakfield school to have a two separate entrance rather than the existing just got one. So in conclusion, the applications has been considered by officers in all the matters as considered is acceptable, and some of the matters, just like the parking provisions, the ecological enhancement measures, they will be secured by condition. So the officer is to recommend this committee this evening to grant permission subject to conditions set out in the report. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Geoffrey. We've got no public speakers this evening, so I'll open for members' comments. Councillor Carpenter.
Hi. So my main concern is that obviously we're losing a residential property, and in RBWM we don't have enough properties as it is. But I'm looking at the notes and it seems to indicate that this couldn't actually be used as a residential property. Could you confirm that? Because it looks like someone used to live there. So thank you.
In the report, paragraph 9.5, it said actually that bungalow is currently vacant, and therefore, it will be completely, independently occupied by the school. So therefore, the change of use actually would not result in there will be a loss of a completely independent dwelling house. So I think that is something different from a normal residential dwelling on the street, because that school, that house is occupied completely independently from the school. So that is a material creation when officers consider there is a loss of the residential dwelling, but there is a consideration in this regard.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Julian TZ.
Hello. I just noted in terms of the residents, there was one resident sort of, I don't know if it was an objection, but it was an objection to a part of the thing which was about hedgehogs, and it just noted that there did seem to be sufficient provision, and I just did note that in terms of the fences. Could you just confirm that that is my understanding.
Thanks, Councillor TCL. As I show in the plan, so that is the enhancement measures provided. I understand in page 3 of the report there is concerns about should have a bit more mindful about the hedgehog. As I said in the presentations of my of this application, the update sheet has said there is already a hedgehog related measures to be provided for the gravel board to the fence panel to sufficiently make sure the hedgecock has been protected. And also there's other ecological enhancement measures provided for other species, just like bats and the wildflower area, etc. So officers consider those enhancement work acceptable in ecological ways, and they all will be secured by plan conditions. But thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Da Costa.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm quite pleased to see that the applicant has responded to those concerns with regard to ecology, and they've removed the parking space that would have interfered with mature tree roots. So that's been really good, and that they have gone to lengths to try and enable species to be able to move through the gravel board of the fence with the hedgehog corridors and the bat boxes. So they were my concerns when I read the report initially, was about the concerns about wildlife and particularly that very mature tree. So I think we've seen a case where the applicant has responded to concerns and come back with a workable solution. So yeah, I'm really pleased to see this. And I would like to propose that we recommend to go with officers' recommendation of approval.
Councillor Sharp.
Thank you. Clearly, I'm delighted with the ecology changes, but I think the most important thing about this is the improvement to facilities for children's education is the most important thing. And I think we should do as much as we can to improve facilities for children and for their education as we can in the borough, to make sure that we continue to have excellent facilities for our younger people. I think that actually overall this is a very good, very clear scheme. One question that I've got is about the bungalow and access to it. And is it actually flat access so that, for example, disabled children can get in there easy? I wasn't sure from the drawings whether it was flat or whether there were steps up or down or through to the bungalow. It looks like it's probably flat, but I just wanted that confirmed so that, for example, a child on a wheelchair could get through there.
He's just having a look.
There is a ramp, it says, provision 9.11. 9.11.
That's the main school building. I wasn't sure about the bungalow.
I don't think it's specifically shown on the plans. It looks like there's a very slight step up, but if there was a ramp required, I'm sure it would be fairly minor works that could be done under the building regulation process, and it wouldn't be an issue from a planning perspective. So I'm not too concerned about the fact that it isn't shown on the plans if they do need one.
Thank you. On that basis, I'm quite happy to second the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. So that was Councillor Da Costa was. Oh, I'll let you say, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. So the motion put forward is to permit planning permission subject to the conditions listed in the report. It's been proposed by Councillor Da Costa and seconded by Councillor Sharp. You can please hand your for, against, abstaining on this motion, starting with Councillor Buckley.
For.
Councillor Carpenter.
For.
Councillor Da Costa.
For.
Councillor Davies.
For.
Councillor Luxton.
For.
Councillor Sharp.
For.
Councillor Amy Teasey.
For.
Councillor Julian Teasey.
For.
And Councillor Wilson.
For.
And that's unanimous, which means the application has been permitted.
Thank you. The final thing for us to consider this evening is.
Nursery is good.
Are you all right, Councillor Luxton?
Sorry.
Okay. And the final thing this evening is just to note contents of the planning appeals received and planning decision reports, which is at the end of the agenda. Do the panel note those? Any comments? No? Okay, thank you. In that case then, We have finished the business for this evening. Thank you very much, everybody, and good evening.
Thank you.